Opium had been grown in China since the 11th century, but it was only until the 17th century that usage really took off, when people realized you could smoke it instead of just chewing it. By the 1800s, there were foggy back alley opium dens in the streets of Canton, now known as Guangzhou, Shanghai, and even in London's Limehouse on Pennyfield Street. In the early 19th century, Chinese exports like silk, ceramic, and tea were hugely popular in Britain. Opium was one of the few things that British Empire could trade back. 300 metric tons of opium was shipped into China. 4 decades later, this had increased to 3,500 pounds in 1831. That's the equivalent of about 100 million pounds to just burn all the opium they found. British traders lost 20,000 chests of opium, equivalent to about 2 million pounds. This led to the First Opium War in 1839. The British were so angry that their drugs had been stolen that they sent troops to the region to demand economic reparations for the financial losses they'd incurred while illegally trafficking narcotics into a foreign country.
Is a theory that claims that the sinking of Titanic was in fact part of a huge insurance scam. Most people don't know that Titanic had 2 nearly identical sisters, Olympic and Britannic. According to this theory, the ship's operator and owner, White Star Line, tried to use the extreme similarity of Titanic and Olympic to fool the world, fool the passengers, fool the insurance company to claim a large sum of money.
Meetings can have lasting meaning, and a meeting on Jack, an important outcome of the 1910 meeting, was a proposal for an institution with multiple branches, which became in part the model for the decentralized structure of the Federal Reserve System.
The south coast of Ireland prompted the British Admiralty to warn the Lusitania to avoid the area or take simple evasive action, such as zigzagging to confuse U-boats plotting the vessel's course. The captain of the Lusitania ignored these recommendations, and at 2:12 p.m. on May 7th, in the waters of the Celtic Sea, the 32,000-ton ship was hit by an exploding torpedo on its starboard side. The torpedo blast was followed by a larger explosion. Officially neutral at this point in the war, Britain was one of the nation's closest trading partners, and tensions arose immediately over Germany's new policy. In early May 1915, several New York newspapers published a warning by the German embassy in Washington that Americans traveling on British or Allied ships in war zones did so at their own risk.
Tremendous crowds which you see gathered outside the stock exchange are due to the greatest crash in the history of the New York Stock Exchange and market prices.
Calvin Coolidge had run his administration on the belief that business was the basis of America's prosperity. Government should not interfere. Herbert Hoover had won a landslide victory promising to carry on the tradition. On Friday, March 22nd, all eyes were on that august government body in Washington, the Federal Reserve Board. The board distrusted the boom. They saw the speculation as reckless and dangerous because it was based more and more on the shaky foundation of borrowed money, margin. The board had the power to curb the borrowing, but the market was now dependent on borrowed money. Without margin, it would collapse.
between America and Japan, however, had been anticipated by some insightful people long before 1941. Regrettably, that didn't include many in the top brass of the military or political elite circle.
In 1945, when the U.S. Army found von Braun and his group and the rockets in the underground factory, at the time, President Roosevelt and then Truman had okayed a project to bring German scientists to the U.S. outside our system, because keep in mind, these people most were members, at least members of the Nazi Party. And being a member of a fascist organization, you couldn't get into the United States at the time. So Paperclip brought them over here outside of the system. So
If Hollywood producers could give the Kennedy assassination the 21st century forensic crime show treatment, it would be solved by a show like CSI in an hour.
It actually showed the opposite of what the Warren Commission said.
But 5 decades later, conspiracy theories...
We have a situation in West Virginia. The family report has seen something falling from the sky.
As God is my witness, it was not of this world.
You want me to investigate flying saucers?
I want you to help me prove to the public the truth. They don't exist.
If you believe that you have seen these strange lights in the sky, would you please raise your hand? How do you explain the damage? What type of UFO could do that?
I'm sorry, UFO what?
Came in like a spear. It just speared through the building like a fireball. You can see the cut of the incision into the building is sideways, so the plane was
talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing, and indeed it has. Apparently that's only a few hundred yards away from where the World Trade Center towers were, and it seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks.
The FBI arrested him this morning after he told senior employees yesterday that his business was a giant Ponzi scheme. He tried to distribute early bonuses to employees of his firms, prompting questions by senior employees. Mr. Madoff allegedly told employees he had a couple of $100 million left, wanted to distribute it before turning himself in to a...
Here are the details that every American needs to know about this plan. Companies to drop your coverage when you get sick, or water it down when you need it the most. They will no longer be able to place some arbitrary cap on the amount of coverage you can receive in a given year or in a lifetime. We will place a limit on how much you can be charged for out-of-pocket expenses, because in the United States of America, no one should go broke because they get sick. And insurance companies will be required to cover, with no extra charge, routine checkups and preventive care, like mammograms and colonoscopies, because there's no reason we shouldn't be catching diseases like breast cancer and colon cancer before they get a job, or you change your job. You'll be able to get coverage. If you strike out on your own and start a small business, you'll be able to get coverage. We'll do this by creating a new insurance exchange, a marketplace where individuals and small businesses will be able to shop for health insurance at competitive prices. Now, for those individuals and small businesses who still can't afford the lower-priced insurance available in the exchange, we'll provide tax credits, the size of which will be based on your need. For those Americans who can't get insurance today because they have pre-existing medical conditions, we will immediately offer low-cost coverage that will protect you against financial ruin if you become seriously ill. This was a good idea when Senator John McCain proposed it in the campaign, It's a good idea now, and we should all embrace it. But an additional step we can take to keep insurance companies honest is by making a not-for-profit public option available.
Desk can now project that former Vice President Joe Biden will win Pennsylvania and Nevada, putting him over the 270 electoral votes he needs to become the 46th President of the United States.
Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, who stated in this process, "I will never give up fighting for you and our nation," will be denied a second term. That has not happened since 1992.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back